Good morning, sir. Will you state your name for the record, please?
Joe Pozzo.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. Pozzo.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Good.
Could you, for the record, please tell us how you are currently employed?
I work for the International City Management Association, Senior Manager for Fire and EMS.
How long have you had this position?
I started there July of 2012.
Prior to this position, what was your position with Volusia County?
Deputy Director of Public Protection.
Were you, and prior to the Deputy Director's position?
Fire Chief of Volusia County.
Thank you. As Deputy Director, when you left Volusia County, were you still in the chain of command for fire services?
Yes. Yes.
So you started your employment with the county as the fire chief?
Yes, in June 2010.
Okay, all right. Before we get into the specifics of this case, and hopefully we won't keep you too long since you have other things I'm sure you'd like to do, I want to ask you just a few general questions about the handling of controlled substances and what's required of paramedics and fire services employees with regards to that. I think we all understand the significance of that, of the handling of controlled substances. From the perspective of a paramedic that's working with fire services of Volusia County, would you say that's one of the more important or responsibilities that they have day to day?
Absolutely. Outside of just patient care, which is their primary responsibility, the handling of controlled substances is paramount. You operate under the medical director's license for those controlled substances, as well as the other pharmaceuticals that are carried on the engines and ambulances, but it's paramount responsibility.
When you mentioned operating under the medical director's license, is it accurate to say that if someone in that organization, the fire service organization, mishandles drugs to a significant degree, that could come back on the medical director?
Absolutely. Because you're operating under his or her license, and you're also operating under state and federal mandates and laws and regulations. So when you tie all of those together, it is a critical responsibility.
And ultimately, is the handling of those things the responsibility, or to make sure that they're properly handled, of the medical director?
Absolutely. The medical director has to sign for the purchase of those pharmaceuticals, and is responsible sort of from cradle to grave on each one of those purchases, from the time it's purchased to the time it's dispensed, and to the time that it's wasted or done away with.
And just so the board understands, on a day-to-day operation of fire services, you have trucks that are what we call advanced life support trucks that have certain types of narcotics on them. Can you just tell them a little bit about how that works?
Well, at the time of this particular case, right, there were engine companies and squad companies, heavy fire apparatus that were advanced life support apparatus that had a paramedic assigned to them on each shift, that carried the full array of emergency medical services gear, defibrillators, bandaging, splinting equipment, as well as advanced life support, defibrillators, pharmaceuticals, IV supplies, to utilize in a tiered system for EMS response. Engine company gets there first, paramedics get off, initiate care, the EMS transport gets there, and the continuum of care to the hospital. So Volusia County Fire Services is very involved in that.
Okay. And if you have a paramedic and an EMT, the difference would be that a paramedic is allowed to dispense?
Paramedic is trained, certified to dispense the pharmaceuticals, and is the one who is ultimately responsible for those pharmaceuticals.
Okay. Directing your attention to June of 2010, which, as you testified to, you were fairly new to the organization at that time. When you came here, were there issues involving the handling, without going into specifics? Lieutenant Rollins touched on something else that was going on at the same time. Were those things in the front burner with regards to some issues of other people in dealing with controlled substances?
Yes.
And so, from your perspective, was that sort of an immediate issue when you walked in the door?
It was.
Do you know, at that time, in June of 2010, what then Captain Rollins' assignment was?
Logistics, captain in logistics. His responsibility was to manage and supervise the logistics office and the personnel that were in there and the programs that were assigned to that office.
And as such, in that position, would he have been aware of these other issues involving controlled substances that were going on in your organization?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to show you a copy of a standard operating guideline from Fire Services. Do you have a copy of that?
I believe I do.
Okay.
It's the controlled substance.
Correct.
Yes.
102.005. Are you familiar with this directive?
Yes. When I arrived, because it was the sensitivity of controlled substances, this particular standard operating guideline went into effect in March of 2010. I arrived in June of 2010, and in the first week I was given this by then Deputy Director Ryan to review because it was fairly new, and there was another case going on that involved controlled substances, and he wanted me to become familiar with this to ensure that this was followed to the T, as he put it.
Okay. And Lieutenant Rollins has already told us that he was in part responsible for the drafting or the revision of this directive. I don't know if you were aware of that, but I want to direct your attention to Roman numeral IV and then number 7. And that is referred to as the out-of-date controlled substances. And I don't know if the
Page 3.
correct. Give me 1 second, 'cause I want to introduce one into evidence and also. I don't know if y'all have that or if it's actually, go ahead and give that. This directive says out-of-date, in part, out-of-date controlled substances, how you deal with them, and it says that the on-duty paramedic, when controlled substances are expired or about to expire and are being replaced, it directs how the on-duty paramedic is supposed to take care of that. And specifically, it says that the drugs are to be destroyed or wasted. Can you tell the board what does that mean?
Essentially, when a controlled substance is exchanged.
Hang on just a second.
I'm sorry. It's right, just that right there. That's the only part of this directive. I'm sorry, I don't have it.
I think we're on track.
Are you okay? Okay. That's the, just so the board knows, that's the only section of the directive that Lieutenant Rollins is charged with violating.
You know, 7A.
Just the whole thing, all of that, not all of it, but what I'm asking Chief Pozzo to do is sort of explain in layman's terms what that directive requires for a paramedic who is responsible on a truck or at a station to do with regards to.
Essentially what happens is there's, by a form, the paramedics on each of the units know when there's a pharmaceutical that's a controlled substance that's going to expire. And they know that. There's also, and should be record of that with either the EMS manager and in logistics so that the medication can be reordered and resupplied. The wasting piece is there's an exchange, there's a personal exchange that occurs. Two people, the new medication is delivered and the old medication then is taken out of service. And the wasting piece means it's drawn up into a syringe and either disposed of into a sharps container, which you have back there.
What do you mean by disposed of?
Disposed of means that you pull it up and then you just
Squirt the liquid?
sort of squirt the liquid out into the bucket. There's other practices that occur into a sink, into the sink in the fire station. I understand that there was also a practice of, just into the grass on the side of the fire station or what have you. But there is witness to the fact that it has been disposed of. And that's the important piece, is that it's been disposed of.
And you have a witness to that and that's documented, is that correct?
Absolutely, it's documented.
Okay. I'm going to show you a form, and I have examples of this form. These aren't the actual ones, but well, some of them are the actual ones from that day, but just, I want the board to be familiar with this form when you are explaining it. Very good. Do you recognize that form? And I don't mean, like I said, the specific information on that form, but the form.
It's a controlled substance accountability form. This one's for lorazepam. There would be one for morphine or any other controlled substance that was in or assigned to that vehicle.
Okay, can you take us through, starting, and I don't mean the bottom part, but the top?
Well, across the top, it'll have lorazepam. It'll have, you'll see there 6210 what was added, 10 milligrams. It'll have a lot number, which is important to track the medication back. Have what the expiration date is, and then a signature of the paramedic receiving it, paramedic delivering or witnessing it, that it's been added. And then there's an expiration, so you're adding and taking away because there's only, in this particular case, 10 milligrams is what's assigned to that unit, so that's what you want to have. So that sort of audits a delivery and a disposal. And then a witness a record of disposal, and then a witness